During the Cold War, whenever the United Nations tried to intervene in many of the proxy wars, the USSR would veto whichever initiative the United States presented, and the other way around. So during the period of the Cold War, the United Nations was not as effective in stopping these conflicts. Some examples of these conflicts are the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and even though it didn't turn out to be a war, but almost, the Cuban Missile Crisis. We're going to be exploring these briefly today. At the end of World War II, the Korean peninsula was divided into two. In the north, a communist regime was installed, and it was backed up by the USSR, while in the south, an American-led coalition gave way to a capitalist system. Next session, we're going to see the details as to how this happened, but overall, this is one of the first conflicts in which the USSR and the United States engage with one another, although using proxies or substitutes for this fighting. In the case of Vietnam, the independence movement in the region of the Indochina gave way to many new countries. One of those new countries was Vietnam. The fight between communism and capitalism became very sour among these two ideologies. The Vietnam War is going to become one of the main defining conflicts of the Cold War. The United States was not able to hold back against the expansion of communism, and it became one of the major defeats of the United States. Another defining moment of the Cold War took place during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. This was one of the major events of the Cold War, and it involved almost direct nuclear action between the USSR and the United States. The fact that these two countries became so close to engage in nuclear warfare was a moment that redefined the way in which the United States and the Soviet Union started to communicate with one another. This doesn't mean that the Cold War stopped, it just changed. This is something that's very well exemplified through a movie called 13 Days. I recommend this movie if you want to understand what was going on during the Cold War period, and mostly to understand what was going on during the 13 days in which the Cuban Missile Crisis took place.